all the faculty members and all the students from Parul Institute of Law and Parul University. I warm welcome Dr. Nirmal Shukla sir today on this webinar. Today I will just give the brief introduction about Dr. Nirmal sir. He is just a minute. Dr. Nirmal Shukla has passed his LLB examination in the year 1974 from Pandit Ravi Shankar Shukla University, Raipur, and in the merit order for the university as a regular student of MES Law College, Bilaspur. He did his post-graduation in economics and English literature. He did his LLM from Rani Dugarvati University, Jabalpur, and he has written 5 books earlier, namely Parliamentary Democracy, Evolution of Literature, Legislature, Court Merger of Indian States, Discrepancy, Nature of Opinion Judgment, an Introduction of Classical Islamic Law, and an Introduction of Classical Hinduism. He started his practice under the able guidelines of Uncle Pandit Lakshmi Chandra Shukla, Manendra Gar, later shifted to Ambikapur, and thereafter in 1984 he joined the Chamber of Justice Farakhuddin at Jabalpur. Under the able guidelines of Justice B.C. Verma, retired Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court, he did his PhD in the law from the same university. He was a Deputy Advocate General of the state of Chhattisgarh from November 2000 to January 2002, and thereafter Additional Advocate General till February 2004. Chhattisgarh High Court designated him as a Senior Designated Advocate in the year 2002. He was a member of Executive Council of Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur, 2010-2013. He has written 6 books earlier, namely the Parliamentary Democracy, Evolution of Legislature, Court, Merger of Indian State, Discretionary Nature of Opinion Judgment, and Introduction to Classical Islamic Law, and Introduction to Classical Hinduism, and Interpretation of Statute. So, sir, I warm welcome to you, sir, at Parul Institute of Law, Parul University. Today, we have our Dean, Dr. Akhil Syed, sir, who is the Dean and Director of Parul Institute of Law, Parul University. Sir, according to Dr. Akhil, sir, he has 24 years of blend experience in teaching professor, and he has set up lots of colleges at Gujarat, and he has wide experience. He is also the first PhD holder at Gujarat National Law University, sir. Really? He has a multidisciplinary profile, sir. He has written various books, and he has 28 articles in his name, credited to his name. He has also presented various paper at various law university, and he is also awarded for the best director and principal at Parul Institute of Law, sir.
Very good.
So, sir, I just request Dr. Akhil Syed, sir, who is the director and dean at Parul Institute of Law, to warm welcome Dr. Nirmal Shukla, sir. Dr. Akhil, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Thank you very much. Dr. Nirmal Shukla Sahab, Sadar Pranam. It's our great pleasure that legal luminary like you, being in a profession, being in an advocate profession, you have such a scholarly track record of academic excellence also. I have met so many senior lawyers and the judges of the High Courts and Supreme Court, but I have never come across such a excellent academic score of any of the professional. Sir, really fascinated with your profile, sir. We at Parul Institute of Law offers various degree of integrated program, that is BLLB, BBLLB, and BCom LLB. Okay. We do offer 3 years LLB program as well as 1 year LLM program in 6 different specialization. At our institute, more than 26 students are pursuing their PhD, and that is what is the journey made by this Parul Institute of Law under the Faculty of Faculty of Law at Parul University. It's the dynamism of our young leader, Dr. Devanshu Patel, who leads this university, who has made the university a largest university in a Western zone in a very short period of time. However, that is about the Faculty of Law. And before your profile, sir, faculty, our achievements are just nothing. I'm very delighted to know that you are going to talk about the sovereignty of the state, and probably that is the highly needed topic to brief the students when there is a new education policy and people do not really understand where, in which direction the state is going. So probably the sovereignty of the state and what are the constitutional mandate. I am very much hopeful that your lecture will give us the idea about not only the meaning of the state, but the actual meaning of the sovereignty of the state. We all are eager to listen you, sir. Please, I will not take much time. I once again thanking you.
Akhil sir, I will add one more thing. Rahil Kochar, who is my student, he is sitting in front of sir itself. So actually, he was when I was in R.N. Patel Law College. So he was my student. So I also warm welcome Rahil Kochar also. So on the behalf of Parul Institute of Law, Parul University, now I am handing this session to Dr. Nirmal sir. At the last 10 minutes, sir, the student will ask, have already sent few questions on this. So I will put you to sir and then you can reply on that, sir. So I am handing this session to Dr. Nirmal Shukla, sir.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. My subject is constitutional sovereignty of state under the Constitution of India. Actually, I can divide this subject into 5 sub-subjects. First subject is what is sovereignty under jurisprudence. What do we mean by sovereignty in the jurisprudential sense? Second is parliamentary sovereignty. Once upon a time, it was argued before the Supreme Court that in India there is parliamentary democracy and parliamentary sovereignty, supremacy of parliament. Supreme Court has denied this concept from very beginning. Then the third point is sovereignty in a federal state. Actually, the traditional concept of sovereignty is taken from the England. England is a unitary state. And at that time, according to the Austin, sovereignty cannot be divided. It is indivisible. You cannot divide. But that concept was changed when United States of America adopted a federal constitution. You know very well that in United States, there were 50 independent sovereign states. They met together, surrendered certain part of their sovereignty in favor of the United States, and thereafter constituted a federal government. So far as the American federalism is concerned, it is entirely different than our federalism. The fourth point is that also cropped up when we adopted democracy. Under the concept of democracy, sovereignty can be divided into 2. One is popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty means sovereignty is vested in the people with the people. And another is legal sovereignty, which is vested in the Constitution of India. Then, when the Constituent Assembly was processing the making of the Constitution, one idea was that it should make 2 constitutions. One for the federal government, that is union government. that should be known as Union Constitution. There was a Union Constitution Committee and another for the state constitutions. Subsequently, that idea was given up. And one constitution, national constitution, deals with the union as well as the state. I tried to trace and to separate to the constitutional part which relates to the states. And on that subject, I have written a book, Constitutional Governance of the State in India. My lecture is based upon first two chapters of that book. It is in print. And therefore, the last point which I will deal with is the status of the state in India. Everybody knows that there are two kinds of states, unitary states and composite state, that is federal state. Till the concept of unitary state was prevailing, the concept of sovereignty says that it cannot be divided. It is vested. It is vested in some determined people. What Dye said? Dye said that sovereign is that person or body of persons which receives habitual obedience from the bulk of given society and does not himself habitually obey some other person or persons. It has two aspects. A bulk of society obeys him. Another, he does not obey any other. At that time, when the doctrine of sovereignty was laid down, most of the states were governed by one ruler and not group of persons. And therefore, the word which is used by them is that person or body of person. By passing of time, rule by one person was passed to group of the person. And therefore, he has used body of person, person or body of person. And with the help of this concept, state was defined in political science. Every state has four elements. It must have territory, it must have population, it must have a government, and it must have sovereignty. India, prior to 1947, that is prior to commencement of Indian Independence Act 1947, we have territory, we have population, there was a government, but we are lacking with the sovereignty. Our sovereignty was vested in the King of the England. And therefore, at that time, we were not a state. Then, there are certain cases in India in which the sovereignty is defined. The first case is Dahi Lal case. It is reported in AIR 1951 Supreme Court 32332. You are well aware that under Article 143 of the Constitution, President can refer any question to Supreme Court, question of fact or question of law, for the opinion of the Supreme Court. I have written a book, just Mr. Rajesh has introduced that book also. So that was the first reference by the President of India. And this is the law laid down in this case is still having field in delegated legislation. In that case also, sovereignty was defined by saying that the term sovereign means a political superior who is not subject to any other political superior. Then there is another case. That case is also well known to legal fraternity. That is Additional District Magistrate Jabalpur Justice Sivakant Shukla. This is also popularly known as habeas corpus case. Sivakant Shukla was a practicing advocate at Jabalpur. He was confined under MISA. He has challenged his confinement. One of the stand taken by the state was that since the president has issued a notification under Article 359 of the Constitution, and therefore a writ petition of habeas corpus is not maintainable. One cannot enforce. Madhya Pradesh High Court said that the rider is upon the petitioner. The rider means that notification whereby citizens are deprived to reach to the court to challenge their confinement. High Court said that this rider is upon the petitioner and not upon the court, and therefore the court is competent to entertain that petition and pass the final order, against which the state went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has reversed, and Silvai has criticized this judgment. H.R. Khanna also was dissenting judge. In that case, it is said that sovereignty is an abstract legal concept. In strictly legal terms, it denotes the supreme power or authority in the state. Here, state does not mean the component states. Here, state means country, entire nation. State, an ultimate source of legality. Sovereignty is classically defined as supreme legal authority. Then the third case is a English case. It is Spain Republic versus Aranjaju Mendi. It is reported in 1939 AC 256. It is also reported in 1939 Part 1 All England Reporter 719. It said that sovereign power means supreme, absolute, unlimited, chief, paramount, principal, dominant, predominant, and ruling. A sovereign state means independent, self-ruling, self-governing, and autonomous. Sovereign means a government which exercises de facto administration control over a country and is not subordinate to any other government in that country, is a foreign sovereign state. So, to sum up this point, sovereignty is well-defined concept in legal. Sovereign is he whose command is obeyed by all within the territory of that state, and he himself never obeys command within it. I am of the opinion that looking to the various development taken during the recent past, sovereignty needs redefinition. It must be redefined, especially taking to various international conventions, control of UNO. All these things again requires that concept of sovereignty must be defined. Now what happened prior to American Constitution? Most of the nations were unitary nations. There was no problem. Now there are a union or federalist government, and there is a state government. Federalism is defined by properly defining, I say that in by K.C. Mehre. He has written 3 books. One is Modern Government, another is Federal Government. So, our Supreme Court has recognized both the books. Let us understand what the federal government is. A unitary or a simple state is one which is not made up of territorial division, which are states themselves. A composite state, on the other hand, is one which itself as an aggregate or group of constituent states. For example, our India, we have a union government, we have a union parliament, we have a union judiciary. Similarly, we have a state executive, state legislature, state judiciary. So, every state have their own territories as defined in the Constitution, Schedule 1. Then, S.R. Bommai versus Union of India. It is a 9-judge bench case reported AIR 1994 Supreme Court, page 1918. It is also reported in 1994 Volume 3 Supreme Court Cases 1, page 1. In that case, and there is another case also, Karnataka, State of Karnataka versus Union of India. This case was, in this case, ordinance was passed, which was challenged relating to Kaveri. What the Supreme Court said that, strictly speaking, our constitution is not federal character, where separate, independent, sovereign state could be said to have joined to form a nation, as in the United States of America, or as may be positioned in some other countries of the world. It is because of that reason that sometimes it has been characterized as quasi-federal in nature, leaving the function of the judiciary apart by and large. The legislative and the executive function of the central and the state have been defined and distributed. But even so, though it is all run, an overall thread are in the hands of central in both the field. Now let us understand federalism part, because federalism compels to divide sovereignty between the union and federated state, and therefore it is necessary to understand what the federalism is with respect to India. Prior to 1858, East India Company was the ruler of India. By Government of India Act 1858, British Parliament has assumed the function of governing the country. Thereafter, certain Government of India Acts was Government of India Act 1858, then 65, then 80, Government of India, Indian Council Act 1861, here Indian High Court Act 1861, then thereafter Government of India Act 1905, 1915, and thereafter 1935. These are the constitutional enactment which were in force prior to 1935. All these enactment makes our country unitary, not federal. 1935 Act, Government of India Act 1935, is the first time when federalism is introduced in India. Now, Government of India Act 1935 is the first enactment which introduced federalism in Indian scenario. Then our constitution is largely and basically based upon that enactment. Now, what is argued? jurist says that so far as state is not sovereign, American states are sovereign. They have only surrendered a small part of their sovereignty in favor of the center. But that was not in our case. In our case, Article 1 says that India is union of states. But what Article 3 says? Article 3 says, in fact, washed out everything. And even the existence of state is depend upon the mercy of the parliament. And that too, it is not needed for abolition of any state, creation of new state, alternation of the boundary of the state, to have a constitutional amendment. It is not necessary. Simple 51% majority in the parliament, simple ordinary law can abolish a state. And therefore, what I wanted to say you, that the existence of a state is dependent upon the mercy of the parliament. Parliament can make and unmake any state. And it was happening in the past. There are several state reorganization acts. Those acts either abolish the state, created a new state, alter the body. Take example of your Gujarat. Gujarat was unknown so far as the constitution or governmental part is concerned. Definitely it is a part of our national anthem, Jan Gan Man. But it was Saurashtra. And most part of the Gujarat was part of the Bombay state. Morarji Desai was the first chief minister of Gujarat, Bombay state, belonging to Gujarat. Till 1956, Gujarat was not a state. Saurashtra was a state. Now there is no Saurashtra. But now there is Gujarat. I am sitting in Bilaspur, which is earlier part of Madhya Pradesh. Now it is part of the Chhattisgarh. Recently, only 20 years back, it was created. So, my first point is that when the existence of the state is solely based upon the wishes of the parliament, then how I can say that the state is sovereign? There are certain cases in which Supreme Court has said that states are not sovereign. One of such cases is Dr. Pradeep Jain versus Union of India, AIR 1984, Supreme Court, page 1420. Another case is N. Nagendra Rao and Company versus State of Andhra Pradesh. It is 1994, AIR 1994, Supreme Court, page 2663. There is one case also which has dealt with it, that is State of West Bengal versus Union of India. It is a very old case of 1963. It still has field. The fact of this case was, government of West Bengal owned certain colonies within the territory of West Bengal. Government of India made a corporation, National Coal Development Corporation (NCDC), and by an enactment, the ownership of those collieries were acquired by a parliamentary state. That was challenged before the Supreme Court on the ground that what the West Bengal government said, sir, this is my property, I am state, I am sovereign, my property cannot be acquired by union, because one of the important element of federalism is that both the state and union are coordinate, they are equal. That concept that argument was rejected by the Supreme Court in West Bengal versus Union of India, saying that Indian states are not sovereign. When one goes to the constitution without the help of these case laws, without the help of the constitutional history of India, bare reading of the problem of the constitution, it will be reflected from some part of the constitution that our state is coordinate with the union. Just I have spoken that time has come when the concept of sovereignty must be changed. Our Supreme Court in the state of Karnataka was a Union of India, year 1978, Supreme Court, page 68. Another case is Union of India versus Sukumar Sengupta. Then SR Mumbai's case also, and State of Rajasthan versus Union of India. In these cases, not directly, indirectly and impliedly, given a new concept to sovereignty. That is internal sovereignty and external sovereignty. An example is given that the legislative subjects are divided into three lists: union list, state list, and concurrent list. This division of legislative power between the central and the state and power to judicial review vested with the Supreme Court makes the state sovereign so far as the internal sovereignty is concerned. A new word is used, internal sovereignty. Now, there's a reason why I say that so far as the sovereignty is concerned, so far as the absolute sovereignty is concerned, is not vested in the states. One thing is, everybody knows that in America there is dual citizenship. Citizenship of a state and citizenship of union, federal citizenship. Citizenship indicates, defines, or represents one of the element of state, that is population. Population is population of citizens, not foreigners. In India, there is no dual citizenship. No state has their own citizens. Means thereby, when I say that I am citizen of India, I can't say that I am citizen of Chhattisgarh. Means that the entire population residing within the territory of India is belonging to Union of India, not a state. And therefore, the first element of state is that population is lacking in our constitution. The second thing is there is no state constitution. This is also one of the important, because the state has to run within the framework of the Union Constitution. This is also a point which says that the state has no sovereignty. The third thing is one of the element of state is also territory. I am audible.
Yes, yes.
Suppose I purchase a land. Land indicates territory. Nobody else me can divide it. State is not owner of the land, owner of the territory. Had it been, then it was not possible to create a new state to abolish the old state. Territories cannot be altered by the parliament. And therefore, so far as the second part, that is territory is concerned, it is also vested in Union of India. Then means what I wanted to say, that the boundary of the state can be altered by the parliament, and therefore the territories within that boundary is not belonging to the state government. The state cannot expand, it cannot be reduced except by parliament. Now, my next point is why state is not enjoying the, as I have stated that there is internal distribution of legislative subject between the union and the state. But if you go, okay, Article 245 says that Parliament and the state legislatures can make laws. 246 says that there must be 3 lists and thereafter till 254, Article 254, in different conditions, state central can make law on state subject. One of the examples is treaty power. One of the examples is when the emergency is there. One is example when 2 or more state passes that a law should be made applicable to the entire nation. One is when your state council of state resolve to and authorize all this, and then even in the state list, the state has no absolute power to make law. As and when it is needed, it is taken by the center. And the last element is government. In case of to federalism, the state government cannot be dissolved, state legislature cannot be dissolved by the center. Under the American Constitution, central cannot dissolve any state government, any legislature of the state. But India is the only country where on filthy grounds state legislatures were dissolved and government were removed. One of the example of Bihar, in Rameswar Prasad case, what happened? Bhutta Singh was governor there. He has recommended for the presidential rule. President rule was imposed and Supreme Court has revoked that. Frequently, states comes within the presidential governments. Means state government itself is nothing but it is a license to them to run the government. Although they are democratically elected government, but what happens? The government, there are several examples in I have written those examples in my book. When there is majority of the government, but government was dissolved. I tell you one example. In 1977, Lok Sabha election, Congress lost majority. Janata Party found the government. Charan Singh was Home Minister. He has written letters to the chief ministers who were recently elected with thumbs majorities to advise governor to dissolve their Vidhan Sabha, their state legislature, because ये चल रहा है कि बंद हो गया because Lok Sabha election shows that the government has lost their majority. Election for Lok Sabha, election of Vidhan Sabha is separate subject. But according to Charan Singh, who was Home Minister, the state government had no moral power to rule the state. And when Chief Minister refused to do so, the governor dissolved the president rule was imposed. It was challenged before the Supreme Court under Article 131, original jurisdiction. The case is reported as State of Rajasthan versus Union of India. After 2.5 years, Janata Party government was also dislodged. Congress again came into power, and the legislatures in which Janata Party has full majority were dissolved in the same way as Charan Singh did. There is another example. In 1992, when the Babri Masjid was demolished, 4 governments were dissolved. They are having majority in the house. But Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh were dissolved. And president rule was imposed, which was challenged, which was decided in S.R. Bommai's case. So, taking into all this, what was happened after 1947 till today, and what is written in the Constitution, I am of the opinion that the state is not sovereign. Sovereignty is vested in we, the people of India. that is known as popular sovereignty, and the constitutional sovereignty, the legal sovereignty is vested in the Constitution of India. I will take only 2 minutes more. We have 3 parts of the state: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Any law which is made by the legislature can be set aside, can be quashed by the judiciary, and therefore, in view of the traditional definition of sovereignty, legislatures are not sovereign. President can be impeached, can be removed. He is not sovereign. Judiciary is also not sovereign because their judgment can be validating acts are passed to remove the defect in the law. That is, judiciary and even judges are impeached in the parliament, and therefore they cannot. And therefore, a new concept has come that is known as cooperative federalism. All these 3, Justice Krishna says that all these 3 organs of the state, they share sovereignty of the state equally. And that is the reason that the court has made certain laws. By virtue of doctrine of separation of power, court cannot make law. It has only to decide it. Judges cannot make law. But in L.K. Pandey's case, that is foreign adoption case, Visakha, then Sarla Muddal case, then Madhi Patil case, these are examples where there is judicial legislation. There is 2 concepts: legislative judgment versus judicial legislation. Indira Gandhi versus Rajnath Singh case, Supreme Court said that judicial legislation is permissible, but legislative judgment is not permissible. And on that ground, 39th Amendment was set aside. I am very happy, and I feel obliged. You have given an opportunity to express what was in my heart. Thank you.
It was very fantastic session by Dr. Nirmal Shah, who is the senior designated advocate at Madhya Pradesh High Court. And sir, it is a great pleasure. Some student, Chhattisgarh High Court. Sir, it is a great pleasure. I am just asking few questions to you, sir, which the student has asked me to. Sir, the question is that, sir, who is the father of this sovereignty?
Actually,
one question. Who has started the concept of sovereignty?
Austin.
Huh?
Austin.
Yes, Austin.
John Austin.
Okay, John Austin. Okay. Sir, one more question with the student that, sir, in America, one student has asked that in America, there is a dual citizenships. But in India, we have a single citizenships. Correct? Now, in America, they have their own state because they have, I think, 51 or 50 states in America. 51 or 50?
They are 50 states.
50. Okay. So, and you know, if suppose they have their, the center has, there are 2 houses, House of Representative and House of Senate is there in America. Yes. So, sir, the question of the student is how this concept of sovereignty, it has been taken in our Indian Constitution, because you know when there is a conflict between the union and the state, in India there is union will prevail over the state. Are exactly correct, sir? But as per the Bomai case and various cases you have elaborated the concept of the sovereignty, sir, the question of the student is that how this concept the Indian government or the India has taken from America of the sovereignty.
We have taken the concept of sovereignty from because certain part of the Indian Constitution is borrowed from the United States. Our Rajya Sabha does not represent House of Lords. It represents Senate, American Senate. In America, in every state has 2 senators, only 2 senators. Total number of Senate members in the Senate is 100. For last 400 years, it can, because all the states are equal. Very small state and very big state. So far as constitutional aspect is concerned, they are equal. Because independent states come and join federalism. Our country is not that. There was unitary state. States are divided for convenience, administrative convenience. Even you are well aware that in the original constitution it is made clear that in Rajya Sabha is elected by the state legislature. Only a person who is belonging to that state, who is voter of that state, can contest. But it was amended, and in Kuldeep Nayar's case, it was maintained. Our former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he was elected from Rajya Sabha, elected for Rajya Sabha from Assam. He was not a resident of Assam. Somebody says in one paper came that there was one room and where it is mentioned that Manmohan Singh. So that is also diluted in our case. And this dilution also goes against the sovereignty of the state. Even in our the senior advocate, Mr. Tuli, he never resided in Chhattisgarh.
Okay.
Now he is elected from here to the Rajya Sabha.
Yes, yes.
Very concept of state sovereignty is broken.
Sir, one more question. One more question from one of the student. Sir, he was asking that in the Raj Narayan case, the Indira Gandhi wanted that all the power is with the parliament. So how it can be connected with the sovereignty? And in the Raj Narayan case, the Honorable Supreme Court has already given a dissenting judgment. So, sir, what is the concept of the sovereignty which is pertaining to correlate with the sovereignty?
Perhaps the facts of Raj Narayan's case and what was challenged is not that student not know. The fact of that case was her election was set aside by Allahabad. She preferred an appeal before the Supreme Court. Appeal was pending there. During the pendency of appeal, because at that time she has bumper majority, Constitution was amended. And 39th Amendment, that is 39th Amendment. 39th Amendment says that election of President, election of Vice President, election of the Speaker and the Prime Minister cannot be challenged in the court. A body will be constituted by the Parliament, in the Parliament, which will decide their fate. This is one aspect. The second aspect, if there is any petition is pending before any High Court against these 4 persons, it will be deemed that the petition is dismissed. If any appeal is pending before Supreme Court, it will be deemed that that appeal is allowed. Now, Supreme Court says that there are 2 different concepts. Separation of power. Parliament or legislature can make laws. The primary function of the legislature is making laws, not deciding the dispute. Not deciding the dispute. It is not a function of the Parliament or the state legislature to decide the dispute. And deciding dispute is within the sole function of the judiciary. Here what happened? House of Lords is also legislature. But at that time, now it is changed. At that time, House of Lords was the Supreme Court of England. Some of the members of House of Lords, they constitute the final court. And the name of the British Parliament, full name of the British Parliament is High Court of Parliament. You will get this reference in UP Assembly's case. The actual name of British Parliament is given in UP Assembly's case. That in that case, it is 1964 Supreme Court. So British Parliament is also, you also know one thing, the Exchequer, he is member of the cabinet, he is Chief Justice, and he is also member of the legislature.
Sir, it's really a fantastic session, and your whole team have cooperated with this webinar. All your team, we congratulate all of them. And sir, one more question that just what I want to ask. Few question I have asked by the student. Sir, my question is that, sir, you know, we have in our country, we have a separation of power. We have taken from America's the concept of separation of power. The judiciary are independent. The executives are independent, and legislature make their own law. But sir, when you know certain time what will happen, we will see in the current scenario in various circumstances that this judiciary, there are certain judgment. Say for example, in Minerva Mill and then IR Colo, which has been elaborated the concept of which is connected with the sovereignty, sir. So my humble question to you, sir, that how it can be, what are the remedy available in our Indian constitution, that if suppose you know after NJSE it has been struck down by the Supreme Court, so how this judiciary should be protected, and certain time there is a pressure from the government on the judiciary also, which is not seen but it is invisible seen. So what is the concept, sir, over here, and can you just elaborate to our student that how this judiciary should be protected?
Yes, first I take Minerva Mill's case. The root of the Minerva Mill case is in 1951, Kameswar Prasad Singh versus State of Bihar. State of Bihar versus Kameswar Prasad Singh. Most of the states, they pass land reforms laws. Malguzaris were abolished. That was challenged before the High Courts. High Court says that it is acquisition of Malguzari is violated to Article 31 of the Constitution, which represents doctrine of eminent domain. In the meantime, there was first constitutional amendment, and now ninth schedule was added. And in ninth schedule, if the law is included, then there is no judicial challenge. That was challenged before the Supreme Court in Shankari Prasad Singh's case. Constitution does not have a word constituent power, but the Supreme Court said that our parliament is not only ordinary law-making power. Parliament is not ordinary law-making body, but when it deals with Article 368, then it derives its authority from constituent power. Constituent power means sovereign power. Constituent power is sovereign power. So, but in Golaknath case, Supreme Court said, Justice Subba Rao said that there is no word in the Constitution that constituent power. And thereafter in Keshavanand and in it is laid down that basic feature of the Constitution. And it is said that Parliament, while acting as a constituent power, in exercise of constituent power, it can alter the Constitution without touching the basic feature of the Constitution. Minerva Mill was followed. In that series of the case, Article 31 and Doctrine of Eminent Domain and the power of the state, and in these cases also says that our Parliament is not sovereign. In that case also said that
Yes, sir.
Parliament is divided into while exercising ordinary law-making power, while exercising constitutional amendment, that is constituent power. That constituent power is sovereign power. But that is only with reference to making of law. Because the constitutional amendment can also be challenged in the Supreme Court on the ground that it violates fundamental rights.
So, sir, it was a very fantastic session. We are thankful, and on the behalf of Parul Institute of Law and on the behalf of Dr. Akil Syed, sir, he went to one of the meeting. So, sir, it is really a fantastic session, and we are pleasure, and we would also like to invite you at our university, sir. Whenever this lockdown will be over, we will just invite you at one of the lecture or at our university physically, sir. Sir, it is really a great pleasure, and we are very much obliged and thankful to all of your staff, sir, and even though to you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. I have been assisted by 3 persons.
Yes, sir.
Advocate Priya Misra,
Okay.
Rahil Kochar,
Yes.
Arjit Tiwari.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you to all, sir and ma'am. It is a really great pleasure, and this recording will be given to all our students, so that if suppose they are facing any problem on this topic, they can hear you, sir, because you have elaborated around about 20 cases. IR Kole, then Shankari Prasad, Golaknath, Minerva Mill. You have elaborated with all the cases, with all the aspect, and also you have elaborated with the challenges, how this is corroborated with the American Constitution, and how you have interlinked with the case law, sir. So it was very fantastic session, sir, and we are really obliged, and we are very much thankful to you, sir. From this, I, Dr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, Associate Professor, Parul Institute of Law, I am thankful to all of these viewers and all, and I am also thankful to Brijesh Acharya, who has coordinated this. He is the person who has devoting, sir, in the holidays hours also. He is in the college, and he is really helpful to all the event with the Parul Institute of Law is going to connect, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all of you. Thank the viewers for seeing this webinar. Thank